Uh, Susan ma'am has also joined us today. Susan ma'am, can we test your video and your audio before we start?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Oh, good. Can you see my video?
Just a minute.
Can you see me? I have my video on according to my settings.
Daksh, we can see Susan though.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's good. Are we in a waiting room?
No, so we are live on YouTube now, so we're just starting this session. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste and a very warm welcome to all of you to the World Teen Parliament's 7th Parliamentary session. In January 2022, we elected 100 teenagers from across the world who gave their ideas or their vision on how can they improve the world. People voted for them, and the top 100 teenagers are finally sitting in front of you as the members of parliament. These 100 teenagers secured more than 235,000 votes to be a member of parliament at the World Teen Parliament. They're working on different ideas, different issues on how they can influence and at least impact the world in a good way through their individual efforts. Because the Teen Parliament believes in two simple ideas. First, let's empower teenagers to an extent that they can influence opinions. And second, always work on capacities that you individually already have, because change has to start from you. You cannot always wait for something great to happen. You cannot always advocate for something to happen. You have to start doing something. So believing in these two aspects, the World Teen Parliament came into existence, and we are hopeful, and we are trying with every single parliamentary session to give these teenagers more and more access, more and more power to their voices to reach out to everyone across the world. We're very thankful to all the guests today also for joining us and taking out the time for being here with the members of parliament at the World Teen Parliament. A very warm welcome to all of our guests today, Mr. Dinesh K, Patnaik, the Ambassador for India to Spain and Andorra, Mrs. Preeti Binoy, the Head of Corporate Communications and Government Affairs at Kimberly-Clark, and Ms. Susan Ferguson, the Country Representative for United Nations Women, India. Thank you so much, all the guests, for joining us today. So let me first invite the first guest for today to initiate the 7th Parliamentary session. The idea behind the parliamentary session is basically to know from people of your stature that how and where is the world moving and what's the role that teenagers can play in it. So let's invite and listen to the first speaker for today, Ms. Susan Ferguson, the Country Representative for United Nations Women, India. Ma'am, over to you for the next 3 to 4 minutes for initiating this session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's really a great pleasure to be here today. Thank you so much for inviting me, and to all of the esteemed panelists and the esteemed members of parliament. It's wonderful to have you here. For me to be here. I have a series of questions here in front of me. Is it these questions that you're wanting me to sort of think about now?
You have to first give your address, and then the teams will go into asking the questions. First, we'll listen to all the speakers, and then the questions start.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, firstly, I think that this kind of initiative is fantastic. I have young teenagers myself living in my household, and I think giving a voice such as this to the parliament for young people is really wonderful and a great practice. I've also worked in elections and election support in Papua New Guinea, where elections are fiercely fought for people to exercise the democratic right. And so I think these kinds of initiatives can really help young people understand how to operate in a parliamentary environment and how to make the most of a democratic system. So tonight, I'm really looking forward to engaging with you on a range of different levels and with different questions. So thank you again for having me.
Thank you so much, Susan, for your quite crisp address to the World Teen Parliament. Let me invite the next speaker, Ms. Preeti Binoy, the Head of Corporate Communications and Government Affairs at Kimberly-Clark India. And fortunately, Preeti ma'am is also one of the advisors at the World Teen Parliament. She has been helping us a lot. Ma'am, over to you to address the World Teen Parliament.
Thank you so much, Daksh, for having me. Absolutely feel privileged to be a part of this panel today with Dinesh G as well as Susan, two renowned names in their own sprees and the work that they do, right? I think it's even more exciting for me today to be a part of this panel because the kind of audience we are addressing, we have some of them at our own homes, like Susan said, right? I'm also mom to a teenage daughter, and I do understand in India the new mindset that teenagers today hold, right? It's so important and critical for them to have a share of voice. I think I'll just possibly go back a couple of decades ago when we were teenagers, we really didn't have these platforms. If I were to look back, I don't think we were even privy to conversations externally that actually gave us the opportunity to understand what happens beyond our school colleges, possibly our homes, and the small community that we possibly have been engaging with. Today, I think it's a different world altogether. And I think before I deep dive any further, I must applaud the fact that the amount of teenagers that we are seeing here today, right, on this call, and some of them who possibly couldn't make it. You guys represent a whole universe altogether. You all represent a huge share of voice that is sitting out there that can really drive difference. So the differences in changing various aspects, right? Be it political scenarios, be it your own point of view, be it advocacy across different segments, or even environmental change for that matter. I think that whole shift is really a great learning curve for also veterans like us to learn from. Today, we're seeing new mediums evolve with children or teenagers, if I may say so, actually being the forefront of this mindset, right? And I think the most beautiful example, if I could spring around, is the startup world. The energy, the creative thinking, the ideas are far phenomenally better than what we did at those age. I think I would just say one thing to all of y'all, and I'm sure we'll talk a lot about it today during the conversations, right? Capitalize on such opportunities. I think being part of the World Teen Parliament by Blub World, it was actually overwhelming for me when Daksh and the team actually first came to me to be a part of the advisory and gave me a background. And I was like, are you serious? We actually have a Congress? I really didn't know about that, right? And when I look at you young kids from all across the world, and like Daksh just mentioned, right, many of you have been voted, and 255,000 votes, Daksh. I don't think any of our MPs also may have got those kind of votes. So it's really astonishing to see that you guys are already creating a niche for yourself. You already have a huge base of influence that you create through your presence. And I think with the evolved education, with the evolved listening, possibly many of you sitting over here will go ahead to take up real big roles that will really help us change this world for the better. So I'm really excited to be a part of this conversation with Dinesh G and Susan. And over to you, Daksh. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much, Preeti, ma'am. Let me invite the next speaker for today for the 7th Parliamentary session. We're very thankful to Dinesh K. Patnaik, the Ambassador of India to Spain and Andorra. So over to you to address the Teen Parliament, and then we'll have questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Daksh. It's wonderful to be here. I feel really nice looking at all the kids who are here today. You know, to a large extent, I never like calling teenagers or kids, because, you know, this is a nomenclature we have given them. If you look at it, Alexander the Great conquered the world when he was 14 years old. And yet we still think teenagers are not capable of taking decisions, that we need to keep them. You know, why I'm happy about the whole teen parliament is that we don't grow up our teenagers in a democratic environment. We tell them, we will tell you what to do, yet we expect them to know about democracy, which is something I find very difficult to understand. The kids need to grow up in a democratic environment to understand what democracy is. And I'm glad, because, you know, one of the few things which most people will tell you is that teenagers only care about themselves. They're not interested in the world. They're not interested in politics, which is not true. There are so many issues. I know I had teenager daughters. Now they're grown up running companies of their own. So, and I still remember as teenagers, they were brilliant. I mean, they understood the world much better than probably I did. I had a more older age perception of the world, and they had a fresh perception of the world. And many issues, I'll tell you, issues of simple things which affect all teenagers, but teenagers have no say in them. For example, when do you fix driving age? How do you fix the age of drinking alcohol? Gun control, abortion, environmental issues, education, student loans. How do governments help? Mental health, anxiety and depression. These are, there are so many issues which concern teenagers, but teenagers have no say in it. And so it's really, I applaud the fact that Daksh, you and your team at Blub World are actually putting together teenagers to think and discuss these issues. I'm waiting for the questions. I haven't got any of the questions. I'm glad Susan has got some of the questions, but I'll be delighted to take the question, because I'm really waiting to see what these young teenagers who have done so well already, getting people to vote for them to become the 100 teen parliamentarians, what they're going to ask. But I'm really looking forward to this. But I just wanted to tell one last thing. Social media today has transformed the way the world looks at, and it has transformed politics also. And the people who really understand social media far better than us are the teenagers, especially Gen Z. And so you are actually giving them a tool to do politics. And I'm very, very glad they're here. So I'm waiting to listen to all of you to answer your questions. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to answer it very frankly. So probably you may like it or not like it, but I'm happy that you are here, and I'm happy this forum has been set, and I'm waiting to listen to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dinesh, sir, for your amazing address to the teen parliament. Before we go into the questions that the teenagers are going to ask, all these teens, once they've come to the World Teen Parliament, they are right now talking to each other, making groups, working on issues, and they have all started an initiative which we hope will reach at least 1 million teenagers this year. We are trying to assimilate the opinion of teenagers through a campaign that we call What Teens Want. We're trying to assimilate their opinions on varied issues, and all these teenagers are taking those messages to many more teenagers. So let's now, the stage is to the MPs. Please come one after the other and ask your questions to the speakers. Thank you so much. The first question comes from Aditri. Aditri, please unmute yourself.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, it's an honor to listen to you all. I'm Aditri Narula from DPSG International, Ghaziabad. So my question goes to Ms. Susan. So, ma'am, my question to you is, like, nowadays the world is inclining towards a greater gender equality, right? So how can we as teenagers help bring about an egalitarian society in India?
Thank you very much for the question. And it's a very challenging question right off the bat. Sorry, I've got my cat trying to get onto my keyboard here. So your question is really about how can young people bring about change? And I think that actually, as Dinesh has just said, I think here social media is such an amazing tool for social change as well, both good and bad, actually. So and I think that young people are particularly, adept at using these kinds of tools to communicate, because change and bringing about change is all about communication and working together and working across groups of people with the same interest. So I think obviously it's about knowledge, getting your head around what is the issue that you're wanting to engage with and bring about change. Who are the people around you who are likely to support what you're saying and that you can draw support from? And how can you connect with each other And who then are you going to be talking to about this issue to try and bring about that sort of change? So, so it is about this kind of bringing about coalitions and working together to be targeted in the conversations that you have with different people. So that's a very short answer to a very big question, but I'm sure that the other panelists will also be able to shed light on this. So thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
The next question comes from Preksha Mahesh. Preksha Mahesh, please unmute yourself.
Daksh, do you want, sorry to get in, Daksh, do you want us to also attempt some of the questions, or is it only for the person addressed to?
No, you can absolutely attend these questions. It's an open forum now.
Yeah, because that was a question which I really liked, because it's about gender equality. And I'm glad she asked about it, because that's one thing which, even though it's changing, it's still far from equal. And the very fact that we still need a UN women to tell the world about how equality should come. I mean, I have always felt that till the day we have a Women's Day, it means women are not equal. The day we don't have a Women's Day, which means women are equal, we are very patronizing about women. We always keep on telling her, you need a Women's Day, you need to, we care about your concerns, but we really actually don't most of the time. The world. And so how do you change? Because these are social things, these are customs things. These are not, you cannot change through politics, you cannot change through laws. You have to change through your own society. And the change can bring by each of us contributing a little bit. So each of you in your own places. And who are the most important people to change the status of women are actually women themselves, and especially the mothers, because the mothers incorporate gender equality in their families much more than the fathers do. The mother gives more attention to the son. Mother says a woman will get married and go away, so she's not really important. So it's more important to get her married than get her a job, So we need to change that within our own society, within our own families. You should not wait to change the world before you can change your own family. First, change your own family. Start talking up, telling people that it needs to change before you can change the world. I've always found that we always wait for the best. The best is the enemy of the good. Do what you can right now. Don't wait for everything to fall in place before you can change the world. Whatever little you can change around you, do it. That's the way to start things.
So beautifully said, Dinesh ji, and I could actually resonate with it, because let me give you an example to the children, an example from a corporate perspective, right? As corporate individuals and as supposedly matured people, while we are also running organizations, gender parity is a big challenge for us as well. For me, I can personally say that at a multinational company, where gender parity is not a big concern, but when you look at it in India, we sit in a space which is called FMCG, right, where you manufacture products which all of us use. Unfortunately, you'll be surprised that 80% of manufacturing units are only run by men. There are very few women that are available on the shop floor, because unfortunately in India, the perception that is carried, it is not a woman's job, it's a man's job. Similarly, when you look at business entities, when you look at your own moms and dads, you see a lot of the males dominating positions or job profiles like a sales director, a managing director. Have you ever heard of a term where you have a woman managing director, a woman sales director, a woman supply chain director? And it's not only at your level, but even at the so-called corporate level and all, that it's changing. Politics for that matter, it's evolving and changing. We're seeing new and new young leaders coming in. We're seeing more and more women coming in. Our finance minister is a woman in this country, which is fantastic. So I think it is a long journey for us, but it only can happen when we have teenagers actually standing and being vocal about these conversations, actually saluting these ideas to then make them important conversations.
Thank you so much, Preeti. The next question comes from MP Preksha Mahesh. Preksha Mahesh, over to you.
Namaste everyone, I am Preksha Mahesh. I study in class 10 from Daftals Foundation for Learning, Bengaluru, Karnataka. My question is to Dinesh sir. So this question is coming from an aspiring civil servant. So I really hope this helps me a lot. So I consider a lot of people inspiration to me, and you are also one of those people who inspire me and a lot of other people. So when you were younger, or when you were in the stage of becoming an inspiration for all of us, who was your inspiration, the ultimate inspiration whom you looked up to, and what did you learn from them?
I really don't remember whether I ever wanted to be a civil servant. So it just happened. I think life pulled me in a direction which I did not know. We are a generation which went with the flow. We had little options before us, and there were few options. Whereas you are a generation with such a wide options that I feel sometimes envious, because you can be anything you want to be today. And the world is really, really large canvas for you all. It's an amazing canvas for you. So make use of it. Civil servant is just one part of it. So don't restrict yourself to that. That's the first thing I want to do. Regarding inspiration, see, who are the heroes you grew up with? There's a thing which says your heroes that you grew up with are never around. It's heroes that you see from far. So for us, when we were younger, our heroes were the people who got freedom for India, the ones who fought for India, because for us, independence was still very near. India was only 20 years old when I was born, or 25 years old. India is now going to be 75 when you're young. So for us, it was still young. For us, the heroes were the people who did a lot for how India really turned out to be, how the world changed, whether it was Martin Luther, whether it was any of the great people who changed the world. Those are the ones you always wanted to be. But they never determined what you want to be yourselves. They were just an inspiration to you to do better. And for you, it should be the same. Doing better is more important. And like I told everybody, today's youngsters, I want to tell it more. If you have a choice of what you want to be in your life, be kind and good. Most youngsters I see on social media being very aggressive and nasty, to be honest. There is a lot of nastiness among youngsters today. And I want youngsters to learn one thing. If you want inspirations, learn to be kind, learn to be good, because that will last you longer than being aggressive and nasty. It's not necessary to be that. So be inspired by goodness rather than by showing the other side how powerful you are.
Thank you, sir.
It would be great if we could get some response from Susan and Preeti ma'am on this as well.
Sure. Susan, you want to go first?
Sure. So I really loved your answer, Dinesh. And I think it's very wise that we really have to aim broadly in our lives. I think this generation, there's going to be so many different options for you over the course of your career, probably. So it's good to have that in mind. It's great to have a vision and to really, know already where you want to head. I think that's very precious, because a lot of people don't, and that's also fine. It took me quite some time before I found my way even into the UN. I've only been in the UN for 5 years, and I had a very circuitous kind of route to get in here. Though I knew I always wanted to work in international development. So I always had that vision, but it took a long time getting here, and none of the things along the way were a waste of time. And my heroes were, I didn't really have heroes in a sense, in that I didn't really have mentors particularly, but there were people I looked up to. And now more than ever, I realize my parents were so crucial in shaping me. But also, actually, the heroes in India were very formative in my university years. I did community development. We learned about non-violence. We learned about Mahatma Gandhi and the kind of incredible things that happen in India and around the world. And those leaders have really also impacted on my life, even though I'm from Australia, So I think leaders and inspiration comes from unusual sources, and you'll find many along the path. Yeah, thank you.
That's so beautifully put by both of you. I'm kind of struggling with words right now, but I just thought I can possibly give Preksha some context. One is I really love what you said, right? The teenagers today are a powerful set. You all have a voice. Use it more effectively. Do not go and become aggressive, like Dinesh said, right? Because aggression is not the answer to get heard. Aggression, unfortunately, feels like a tactic where you want to revolt. And I'm sure all of you have a point of view. All of you have some great ideas, some budding talent that's available here, right? And how do you really want to be heard? Bring those innovative ideas to the forefront. Bring that innovative thinking up there, because that's how you'll be able to actually use social media as a tool to make your voices heard. On your question, Preksha, on getting inspired, who's our hero? Frankly speaking, I grew in an era where the biggest heroes in India at that point of time was the Indian cricket team. And if you ask me why, I was in school when 1983 happened to India. The biggest win for Indian cricket, the biggest respect that our Indian cricketers earned in this country, right, was winning the World Cup. And I'm sure all of y'all have seen the movie. That indeed brought in a lot of pride for the generation I was in. All my male friends that I knew at that point of time, everybody either wanted to become a Jimmy Amarnath or Sunil Gavaskar or a Kapil Dev, so on and so forth. Girls like me were actually scratching our heads to say, okay, what next? Do I move out of college? I can't pursue cricket because women cricket at that point of time, mind you, was nowhere to be seen on the surface, right? What do I do? And trust you me, that was the time when I had to not look any further. The inspiration was lying right in my house. It was my mother, who broke the shackles, who was a fantastic mother, a fantastic wife, doing all her duties right, at the same time, a fantastic and an inspiring professional in her career. She was the one who brought banking and finance to the forefront for me. That's how I learned. And that, ever since I got the realization, became my inspiration to say, I want to be like my mom. Honestly, I think inspiration sits in our houses. It's just that you need to use your magnifying glass just to look around, and you'll find it right there. You really don't have to go and watch it on the big screens or look around outside. They're sitting right there for you. Like I told you, Preksha, I'm inspired by you. At the age of 15 or 16, I really never even thought of what career I wanted. By the time I reached high school and I was almost going to graduate, when I said that, oh, I want to be as powerful, I want to be as successful as my mom. But at 15, 16, look where you are. You have your own thought process. That is inspiration.
Thank you, ma'am. That really inspired me a lot.
The next question comes from MP Carla Torre Costa. Carla, over to you.
Hello, my name is Carla Torre Costa and I come from Spain. And my question goes to Miss Preeti. I reckon you have studied and experienced a lot of things, and I would like to know how you chose this career path. You've mentioned your house as an inspiration, but also other ways. So I wanted to know, how did you choose this career path, and how did you know how you wanted to study and how you wanted to work? Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, Carla. Good evening. So lovely to see you, and thank you so much for the question. First and foremost, congratulations for being part of the Teen Parliament. In fact, are a great voice and a powerful voice to be inspiring a lot of them. Honestly, Carla, when I actually started my wee ages of growing up, when I realized, oh, I want to do something, trust you me, I didn't have a clear vision. I remember at the age of 8 or 9, I always wanted to be a dancer. I learned Indian classical dance, I learned Bollywood, I did all of that. When I was around 15, 16, everybody would ask me, like, so what do you want to be? And I would turn around and say, I want to be a dancer, I want to be an actress. And my father would just turn around and say, that's not a career. And I would just shrug to say, oh, is that something bad? And he'd say, yeah, that's great as a hobby, that's not a career. The journey, unfortunately, from your hobby to making it a career didn't really progress because I couldn't break those shackles, right? I went on inspired to wanting to be a dancer till the age of 15, 16. But when I reached college, I was then in a limbo to say, oh, now what do I do? I've always wanted to, in my mind, be a dancer. But now I've entered college where I'm not learning nothing about dance. So what's my secondary career? I then wanted to be a clinical psychologist. Everybody kept asking me, why clinical psychologist? I said, I want to read people's minds. And that's when, again, I was told by a family member, you just can't read people's minds like this. You need to be intelligent. And the term of intelligent was, you're an art student, you're not a science student. So in India, you have typical barriers. If you're an intelligent scholar student, you do science. If you're an average student, you either do commerce or arts, right? But clinical psychology sits in the arts bucket. I said, oh, I'm not an intelligent student, but I finished my graduation to say, all right, let me finish my years of education. When I finished my graduation, I was again scratching my head. Oh my God, now what? And that's when I actually wanted to use my creative instincts. I told my parents, I said, just give me the liberty for 1 year to actually study further. Let me try and see what I want to make out of my career. I went ahead to do my MBA. I realized communications was something that came easily out to me, right? Was it my passion at that point of time? Unfortunately not. I was just supplementing it with a career option because dance for me was my passion. But when I started learning in my MBA class, when I started learning communications, it took me to a direction to say that it's just not about the way you talk or the way you speak, right? Communications is a lot more where you can build businesses, you can build reputations for people. And that's how I actually chose my career, because while I was actually going in my education, at that point of time, there were very few women communicators in India. Communications as an industry was really budding, and I wanted to leverage that opportunity to make a budding career out of it. So that's just a little journey about myself, a little lost, but at the end of it, I found my path to say, this is where I want to progress. And I think that was the inclination that I had. I hope I was able to answer your question.
Yes, you did. It was a very complete answer. Thank you so much.
The next question comes from MP Riddhima Jain. Riddhima, please unmute yourself.
Hi, sir. My question is for Dinesh, sir. First of all, I'm Riddhima Jain, a student of at Bhavan Panchkula, Haryana. And I'm a member of. Tell us about an incident from your life that changed or transformed you into what you're today.
Riddhima, I think I couldn't hear your question very well, but I think the last part I heard, which was that what was an incident which changed the way I look at the world, is it?
So may I repeat the entire question?
Yeah, please go ahead, Riddhima.
Sir, I want you to share about your journey in life as an IFS officer. And also I would like to know about any incident from your life that changed or transformed you into what you are today.
I think probably I was the same I was when I was a teenager like you. I haven't really changed much in life, but things change in the way you perceive life. As a person, you remain the same, but the way you perceive life changes. You become probably more aware of things around you, of how things suffer. So that's the reason I'm very happy that as teenagers, you're getting exposure to a whole world, wide world around there that you did not have before. You see, in life, there are three kinds of issues which always everybody is concerned with. One is local issues around you. You know, how do the others treat you? What's your problem? You have to get up in the morning, you have to go to school, you know, issues which you have, everyday issues. Then there are national issues which are concerning your country as a whole. And then there are global issues. As a teenager, you never think of anything beyond what is around you. As you grow up, you realize that the world has far bigger issues than your own personal issues. And that's what changes you slowly as you grow up. Like, for example, today you look at global issues. What are global issues? Global issues are which everybody has to get together to resolve. It cannot be resolved by just one country, one person, one state, one anything. So which are those global issues? For example, you're looking at poverty. Poverty is a global issue. Climate change is a global issue. Terrorism is a global issue. These are issues you cannot solve by yourselves. It has to be solved by everybody. Or like women's emancipation, gender equality. You know, these are. So as you grow up, you suddenly find that you get exposed to issues which you never thought. I mean, I never thought about gender equality when I was growing up. I mean, it was never an issue. Environmental issues were never there. For us, environmental was going outside and playing, and you never thought about what was environmental issues when we joined. Today, there are so many issues that you talk about. I mean, drinking age was, of course, very important for all of us when we were teenagers, but we still never understood what it was about, or driving, or anything else. What I'm saying is, as you grow up, you get exposed to all this. So things will happen. There is a study done recently which said that at our age, when we grew up, a man could do one kind of a job his entire life and he would stay in that job. You teenagers, the study says that you will change at least 7 jobs in your life. So which basically means that 7 times in your life, you will come to a situation where you will think that, oh, I don't want to do this, I want to do that. Or this is more important than that. So don't look for one thing that will change your life. You will have multiple things that will change your life, from falling in love to finding a new place to getting married to, you know, there will be so many things in your life which will change you. And for me, the same thing has happened at every stage, every posting that I've had, whether it was my first posting in Switzerland or my posting in China or in Bangladesh or in Morocco or in London or anywhere else, everything changes you. And you become what you are today, but you remain the same, but your perception about the world changes. You see the world differently. And so that's what I want you to do. I want you to start opening your eyes much earlier than what we opened our eyes. You know, see the world for what it is. Learn that it is only through working together with everybody that you can solve the world's issues. But the effort has to be on your own. So everybody has to get together, but you have to start at your own place. If you see somebody throwing a piece of garbage on the ground, pick it up. Don't wait for others to get together to pick up that piece of garbage. If you see somebody doing something wrong, point it out and tell them right now. Because don't wait till you come to a stage where old like me that you want to tell people and it's too late. So do it when you have the time.
Thank you, sir.
The next question comes from MP Sukhmani Kaur. Sukhmani, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sukhmani Kaur. I'm a student of Delhi Public School, Chandigarh. And my question is for Ms. Preeti ma'am. My question is that considering the prevalent situation in India, where the resolution to give women 1/3 representation in parliament is still being debated, I want to ask ma'am, what are your views about the delay and conflict on why this issue is taking so long to pass, even in today's contemporary modern world? And if this resolution is passed, is there any certainty that the plight of women will improve with this? Thank you, ma'am.
Wow, Sukhmani, I am appalled to hear the thought process that you have. Trust you me, I don't think Dinesh ji, me or Susan may have even thought of it a little beyond a second of what are the issues prevailing in the country and specifically on the women bill, on how we want to address them. I think your answer lies in your question, right? Why is it taking so long? The answer is, are we prepared as a country? Are we prepared for the change? Do we have the right mindset to make that change? I don't think we are still prepared. We still have to walk the talk, right? And it's a long journey ahead. If we talk of resolutions, policies, why do they take so long? Because unfortunately, we ourselves are not prepared. We are not ready for that change, right? Who is going to help us drive that change? Or who is going to be able to ensure that these issues are fast-tracked? You. Teenagers, youngsters like you who need to drive that change and bring it in, right? And that will only happen when voices like you come to the forefront and talk of the need, right? Today we're seeing multiple issues, and I think why go only focused on women's issues? LGBTQ, right? We talk of the third gender. Are we really open about this conversation in India? Do we really celebrate Pride Month in India from the perspective that we are normalizing conversations? I have friends who are gays and lesbians, and we still have challenges. When we go out, we're like, oh, sorry, no stags. And they're like, sorry, but we're a couple. Like, sorry, sir, we have to come back to you. That mindset needs to change. Only then will any kind of change be possible. Yeah. So the answer lied in your question. That's why I really didn't have to take that effort. But thank you so much, my dear, for the question. Really, really beautiful.
No, very, very well answered, Preeti. Really, really. That was very nice.
Thank
you. Just to add one thing to that answer, this issue of women in parliament, it's common across the world, sadly. And unfortunately, I think that often parliamentarians feel that if they sort of allow more women into parliament, someone loses, I mean, they may lose their seat, for example. So there's a whole lot of power dimensions of these kinds of questions that countries really need to grapple with. We know, though, that having more women in parliament is equated with better economic outcomes, actually more broad economic outcomes across the country. So it is really important, not just because of, the process of democracy and representation, but also because women in parliament bring difference and bring, diversity. And that's what democracy is about. So it's so important to keep the conversations going and keep the connections going to not let such an issue die. It's a long-term process, these political changes.
The next question comes from Samiksha Tomar. Samiksha, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I'm Samiksha Tomar from Meghalaya, and I'm an influencer involved in Parliament. So my question is for Suzanne, ma'am. As the war is going on between Russia and Ukraine, also we come across news about different riots and attacks around the globe. I want to ask you about the role of UN Council members, especially the UN representatives during such situation. On what responsibilities they hold. Thank you.
Thank you, Samiksha, for that question. It's again another very difficult question to answer in many ways, but so crucial for the world today, where conflict continues in different countries. So the UN's got a range of different roles in such countries. There's a political arm of the UN that is involved with, supporting peace talks between the different factions. And then there's also the humanitarian arm of the UN that provide emergency shelter, food, and medical relief to the people who are experiencing those conflicts, because the UN is not aligned, the UN's role really is as strong as the member states of the UN. We ourselves operate, rather like a democracy as well. Different member states influence the politics that plays out within the UN. So we are only as strong as the member states. So, but in the Ukraine at the moment, for instance, UN Women remains open in Ukraine. And I know from my colleagues who are based there that it's extremely difficult, and that their own staff have been, one of their priorities is keeping their own staff safe. And often in these kinds of conflicts, women are particularly affected from the conflict. And also women's groups are often sort of targeted in different ways as well. So our job is often to try and understand what is happening on the ground, be able to sort of feed that information out so that we can fundraise and try and attract more humanitarian support to the people who are experiencing that conflict. And that at the moment is UN Women's focus, and a lot of our other UN colleagues like UNICEF and UNHCR who are at the forefront of the response in these kinds of crises. And we just remain concerned and sad really for seeing that play out. And in this day and age, it's terrible. So.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. If I may just tell you one thing, I just want to take up from where Susan left off, which is that the UN ultimately is a sum total of all its members. So the decision of the UN is of the members. And unfortunately in the UN, not all members are alike. There are some members who are part of the Security Council who are more powerful than the rest of the members. And the Security Council was set up in 1945 when the UN was there, just after the Second World War. So it's basically an anachronistic membership of people who are in the Security Council. And if a member of the Security Council is doing the aggression, which basically means the Security Council does not have the wherewithal to stop them because they have a veto power, the power to be able to stop anybody else taking action against them. So this is what has happened in the past. India has been at the forefront of saying that we need a reform of the Security Council to make sure that it better suits the time of it suits the present time. I mean, for example, in 1945, there were about 45 countries in the world, 45, 50 countries. Today, there are 197 countries. So essentially, you need a change of the UN Security Council, the way the UN is formed. And one of the few things that India has been fighting for the last many, many years is to reform the Security Council and to reform the UN, to make it more contemporary, to make it more, to be able to take up the challenges of contemporary times and to be able to do what it was supposed to do, which is bring peace, harmony, and social justice across the world. And that is what we will keep on trying to do. But again, here it comes that the next generation will have to take it up. It's always you who are the future. The more you are aware of what happens, the more you will be able to do a better work at this than what we have done up till now.
Thank you, sir.
The next question comes from MP Harshvardhan Singh Tomar. Harshvardhan, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Namaskar everyone. So my name is Harshvardhan Singh Tomar, holding the post of MP in World Parliament. So my question goes to Dinesh sir, that from being former TG in ICCR to being ambassador to many countries and now to Spain and Andorra. So in your entire career, how do you see the graphical growth of growing India's tenure on the global stage? At once you have said that India and Spain bilateral ties have been won without any controversies. So how do you project their future ties in the light of Ukraine-Russia war?
That's a very adult question to ask, but I will answer it. But it's nice you asked. See, there are two things about the stature of India. I joined the Foreign Service in 1990, which is almost 32 years back, which I think was much before you were even conceived. So we are looking at it at a far longer time ahead. And that time, it was a different India. And I'll give you an example. I joined in Geneva, and when India used to speak in the Human Rights Commission, a lot of people used to get up and walk around with a coffee or go to the restroom, because India is speaking, they'll say the same old things, and it wasn't really that important. In today's world, when India speaks, everybody comes back into the hall to listen to what India is saying. So it's a huge change in how India is perceived, and we in our own lifetime have seen that change. In any meetings, any controversies, any dealings across the world, where the world has to take action, if India is not part of the solution, then the problem can never be solved. We are always have to be part of the solution. If the problem has to be any global problem, India has to be. We are still 1/6 of the population of the world. One of the top 5 to 6, 7 countries in the world economically. And so you cannot have a global solution without India. So when you're looking at India's stature, it has changed over my lifespan, and I'm proud to have seen the change. What was your second question which you asked? I completely missed out.
So once you have said that India-Spain.
Oh, India-Spain. Oh, no,
Yes.
India-Spain. See, India-Spain relations are wonderful. They're very good without any controversy. But that's not what it should be. It's not a question that it's a relation without controversy. It has to be a relationship which inspires. Because you're looking at any two countries which have a relationship. If it's a normal relationship, you'll all get into relationships as you grow up. You can have a marriage without love. You can have a marriage with love. You can have a marriage in many ways that you want. And like Preeti was just, you can have LGBT marriages. You can have all kinds of things. Today, everything in the world is open. But what you need is a marriage which inspires others. Spain is sitting on an axis of Latin America, North Africa, and Europe. It's an old civilization. In fact, the Spaniards were the ones who actually were looking for a way to India. It was not the Portuguese who finally discovered it. Columbus was given the task by Queen Isabel to find India. He thought that the world is round, so instead of going east, if I go west, I will still reach India, isn't it? It's logical. But he never realized that there was this large landmass of the Americas, which was between Spain and India from the west. So he reached the west. He reached the West Indies. He called it West Indies because he thought he had reached India's, but the west of the India. So he called it West Indies. And so you have the whole American continent been discovered by Columbus, but he was actually traveling to discover India. And then the Portuguese went to the east, and then they founded Vasco da Gama, which is much later than Columbus. So Spain was the original people trying to reach India. Same way, India was at the hub of the Indian Ocean. It's the only ocean in the world called after a nation, because we were at the hub of world trade. The world trade used to happen through India. Whether it was the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Chinese, anybody, all of them traded through India, because that was the only way you could travel that time, till Marco Polo found the Silk Route, which was still very tough because it was months and months of treacherous going through the land, being accosted by bandits, robbers, etc., etc. It was really difficult. But still then all trade used to happen through the Indian Ocean. So you had two nations, maritime nations, which wanted to get together, never got together. And now is the time for us to work together. We're doing so much together. Culturally, we are the same. If you look at most, we have a Spanish girl, Carla Torre Costa. Where are you from, Carla? I don't even know where you're from in Spain. In Spain, where are you from? Which part of Spain?
I am from Albacete.
Oh, she's from Albacete. Yeah. Albacete is a beautiful part of Spain. And Albacete is this place where saffron started. Yes. So the saffron that you have, which is grown in Kashmir, was originally in Albacete. Albacete is the place where the world saffron started. So the saffron is produced in only 3-4 places in the world, in Spain, in Greece, in Iran, and in Kashmir. These are the four places in the world where saffron is produced. And so what I'm saying is there are so many things that India and Spain can do. So when I described India and Spain having no issues, it just meant we have a very nice arrangement, but it's not something which inspires. So my job is to make sure that we reach a relationship which can inspire others to show how two countries can work together.
Thank you, sir.
We would like to add one more thing to this. The World Teen Parliament has been getting a lot of entries from Spain, all across Spain. I think the local municipal council did a press conference with Carla in her city, where once she was elected to the World Teen Parliament as a member of Parliament.
Yeah, Albacete is a beautiful place. You should all come and visit Albacete. It's really nice.
It has a lot of history.
Yeah, a lot of history.
Yeah.
The next question comes from Anushka Chandra. Anushka, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm Anushka Chandra Raj, and I'm an influencer of WTT, and I'm a 10th grade of St. Emma Jeffrey School, Bansal campus. My question is to Ms. Susan, ma'am. Ma'am, you have lived and worked in South Africa, Solomon Islands, and many more countries. So what are the most common issues you have observed related to women across the countries? And are there any different from the issues that women face in India? And is there any common solution for all those issues?
Thank you, Anushka. Again, huge question. So my experience in living and working in many different countries is that women across the world share many of the same sorts of issues. So, you know, violence against women remains a huge issue in every country. The rates differ from country to country a bit, but it still is it's one of those sticking points for women's empowerment globally. Likewise, women's participation in the formal economy remains a challenge, and Preeti was talking about this earlier, about the sort of stereotypical kinds of things that women are more likely to do in the workforce, and likewise men. And often women are gathered in the sort of lower income earning areas of the workforce if they are in the formal sector. You know, there's a range of these different issues that do affect women's empowerment and equal participation everywhere. What differs, of course, is the context. You know, so a woman in Sweden or a woman in Australia or a woman in India, and depending where she is in India and her own circumstances, ethnicity, and a range of different things, she is going to experience these things in a different way. So, so it really is, you know, often the intensity is more, you know, experienced differently in different contexts, and context is so important. So I think there are many different things that need to change. And, you know, again, I think our panelists have already talked about this issue of behavior change and social norms that encase a lot of the challenges that both women and men face. That need to change, and that's something we can all do something about. You know, we can change our behavior, and it doesn't cost anything, and it's within our power to do so. So that's one really important thing. Of course, laws need to change so that they you know, enshrine the kind of human rights and freedoms of everyone. And the policies, the funding needs to change. Funding flows to women's issues are really important, because you can't, you know, if a government's bringing its country up in economic development, you know, what they invest in certain groups is also really important. So you really, there's not one, unfortunately, if only we could say one thing could change everything. But really, there's this network of different things that need to change to ultimately ensure equality between women and men. And those things do change and have changed over the years everywhere in the world. Culture is always changing. It's not a fixed thing. and likewise, laws change depending on who's in power. So, you know, although there are many challenges, there's also a lot of hope in the world. And it again is young people like you who are so important to continue to focus on the inequalities and to work together to bring about change. Thanks, Anushka.
Thank you, ma'am.
The next, since we are nearly at the conclusion of the parliamentary session, we have asked for 60 minutes from all our speakers. So the last question comes from MP Shivansh Kumar Raj. Shivansh, over to you. Please unmute yourself.
Am I audible? I was not able to unmute. I'm sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm MP Shivansh Kumar Raj. My question is to Sri Dinesh K. Patnaik ji, Ambassador of India to Spain and Andorra. Sir, in recent times, there are huge vacancies in services like IAS, IPS, and IFS. Some think that this situation has been fabricated to lead to concentration of power. Retired IAS officer Anil Swaroop was served as Union Coal Secretary 2014 to 2016 and Education Secretary 2016 to 2018. Wrote in one of his books that he needed to take permission from the PMO to hold a press conference regarding CBSE paper leak. He also says that there were many such examples. He alleged that the PMO was interfering and occupying the space of ministries. There have been criticisms with regard to conduct of Indian diplomats, although MEA defended this by saying that they are showcasing confidence. Some retired diplomats and opposition parties have expressed concerns that this will lead to gradual decline in the fruitful interactions and change the way India engages with different issues in international area. And I really like the way that in your initial opening statement, you encouraged us to be a little politically active and also use social media to spread a good message. Thank you, sir.
And I couldn't get your question, but okay, let me try and tell you what it is. It's really a very, very important question. Are bureaucrats supposed to be as political as the political masters? It comes down to that, and you're not supposed to be. You're supposed to be the iron frame on which the country moves, because politicians have to every 5 years go back and do politics, get elected, come back to rule the country. They represent the people. As bureaucrats, you don't represent the people. You represent the government. So your job is to keep the government ticking. And so you cannot become political. You have to work with everybody. If today the BJP is in power, you work with them. If tomorrow the Congress comes to power, or the Jan Sangh, or any other combination of people come to work, you have to work with them. The moment you become political, then the political system will then choose you, will say, this is my people, that is your people. And that is not what you're supposed to be. So first thing is, bureaucrats are supposed to be apolitical, objective, and to be able to do work in an environment free of pressure. But every society changes, and societies today world across, whether you look at the US, Europe, anywhere else, is getting divided politically. Now, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, Christian Democrats versus socialist, right versus left, everybody gets, and we live in a political world, and we will get affected also. I mean, you and I, all of us, we read newspapers, see the news every day, and we get affected. So sometimes we behave like that. But that does not mean that the system should change. The system should remain strong. As individuals, I may become pro one party, pro the other, but it should not affect the way I do my work. So that is very important to understand. But you hit on something you said before about vacancies. And, you know, I have always believed that a country of our size is a very small bureaucracy. I'll give you an example, and this will be a strange example to give you. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs in New Delhi has less people than the US Embassy in New Delhi. For a country of our size, we have very small diplomatic service. Singapore, which is such a small country compared to us, has more diplomats than the Indian government has. Japan, you name it, Denmark, you name any small country in the world, they have more diplomats. So we really need more people to be able to convey the strength of a country. And that we will do slowly. It's still a process to go about. That's something we can debate. There are a lot who feel that we don't need so many people, but a country of our size really needs people. But this also brings you back to the other question, which I always ask. Do we need a government that big? Shouldn't India be actually governed in a manner in which the people actually do things of their own, and the government is least intrusive in what India does? We have become a country of people who always wait for the government to give us something. Everybody, whether it's Preeti working in corporate or even Susan working in UN, everybody waits that the government will do something for us. Why should the government do anything? And government has got used to it. So we always try and behave as if we are the ultimate arbiters of power, that we will decide what happens, which is not true. The people decide what happens. It's you youngsters who are going to be the future who will decide what happens. And our system should reflect that. To a large extent, social media reflects that, except that it has been hijacked by people for their own personal and individual reasons. And that's a different matter. And that you all have to make sure that you don't get swayed by, Elon Musk. Why didn't he finally buy Twitter? Because he said there are more bots than people on Twitter. When he did the calculation, he realized he's buying mechanism which he thought had millions of followers, but actually it had less followers, and most of it bots, because there are companies and organizations which are using Twitter to influence minds, making, when you tweet something which they want it to be known publicly, they suddenly have these bots working overtime. So suddenly you have 1 million likes, where actually maybe about 100 people may have liked it, but it just shows 1 million likes because the bots are liking it. So the whole game today is about influencing how others do. And so you have to be aware of that. And politics is a place, unless you are aware, you will get swayed by all kinds of emotions. Like I told you, you don't grow up in a democratic way, because you are being told by your parents, your society, everybody, that till you are not 18, till you are not an adult, you can't take a decision. And then suddenly as an adult, you're thrown into a place where you take decisions the way you took as a teenager, which is, how do you take decisions as a teenager? You take decisions depending on, how do I like my mom? Do I like my aunt, my sister, my friends? On liking. So then you tend to be swayed by issues of caste, ethnicity, religion, because these are people you know. They're like me, so I will vote for them. You don't look at issues because you have not been taught by your parents to look at issues as a teenager. When you become an adult, you suddenly are taking issues which is so easy to do, because, oh, I like this, he's like me, so I will vote for him. And so it's very important that you teenage parliamentarians change the way things happen. And I wish you all the best. I think we're probably the last question, if I'm not sure, Daksh, but if you have more questions. But it is wonderful to have heard all of you. Take away, I've had very good co-panelists. I think both Preeti and Susan were outstanding, and thank you both of you. And I hope to see some of you sometimes. Carla, you are here in Spain. If you're ever coming by Madrid, come and drop in and say hello. I can probably offer a cup of coffee, but it'll be nice to meet all of you. Do well, and all the best to all of you from my side. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, sir.
That was really
Thank you so much, Dinesh. I think with your last concluding statement, you somehow touched the actual soul or the essence of the World Teen Parliament, where we want to tell teenagers that decision-making should be based on your understanding of things, not just your emotions. So thank you so much, Dinesh, sir. So thank you so much, all the guests, for taking out the time for today, for being here with us for the 7th Parliamentary session of the World Teen Parliament. And thank you so much, all the members of Parliament, all the teenagers, all the MPs, all the influencers for being here with us for this session. I hope this would take you at least a big leap ahead in your own life. And when you again go back on the table and start working on issues on how can you, as individuals, improve the world. Thank you so much, everyone. And I request all the guests that wherever you find the right place and wherever you find any teenager who might and who has some ideas that could change the world, do suggest them to be a part of the World Teen Parliament. We are there to support them, mentor them, and even fund them. This is a non-profit initiative being run by Blub from its own pocket. No one has to pay anything to be a part of the World Teen Parliament. I hope we're able to see more influential and more amazing teenagers in the future. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. Have an amazing evening ahead. Namaste.
Thank you, Daksh. Thank you, the entire team, and thank you to my co-panelists. Indeed, was a pleasure.
It was great. Thank you very much. Good luck to everyone. Great to meet you all. Thank you.